Welcome to today's Explainer. I am so genuinely glad you're here. Today, we're unpacking something profoundly important and honestly, kind of intimidating for a lot of us. We're looking at the brilliant insights from Paula Williams' work on changing your family story, specifically focusing on the courage it takes to heal through action. My goal today is to really step into the role of your coach. I want to help you transition from simply understanding your past to finally taking real transformative action. So if you've been feeling stuck lately, you are in exactly the right place. Let's get into it. I want you to start by asking yourself this incredibly deep question. What cycle are you most tired of repeating? Look, I really want to validate the hard work you've already done. By now, you probably know that your emotional suitcase exists, right? You've bravely looked inside it. You understand the heavy items it holds, and you might even know exactly where those items came from. You recognize the masks you've learned to wear just to survive. And honestly, that takes a massive amount of self-awareness. You should be really proud of that. But if you're hearing this question and feeling a deep sense of exhaustion, it means you've reached a critical turning point. Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1. When awareness isn't enough. We have this funny tendency to believe that if we just analyze our patterns deeply enough and trace our wounds back to their origin story, poof, the pain will just magically evaporate. We think the analysis itself is the cure. But I have to share a hard truth with you today. Analyzing your patterns and wounds does not automatically create change. Understanding is just not the same as healing. Now, awareness is undeniably powerful, for sure, but awareness alone doesn't change things. So many people spend years, sometimes literally decades, understanding their struggles perfectly. They know exactly why they react the way they do, why they struggle in relationships, where their wounds originated, yet their lives remain largely unchanged. And listen to me carefully here. This is not because they're unwilling or broken. It's because healing requires something more than just knowledge. Knowledge doesn't automatically produce action. Healing at its core requires action. Moving right along to Section 2, the comfort of old patterns. I want to totally normalize why you might feel completely stuck right now in this knowing phase. And I say this without an ounce of judgment. Staying exactly the same actually offers you some very real, albeit deceptive, benefits. Even painful patterns can become incredibly comfortable when they're familiar enough. You know exactly what life looks like inside your current patterns. What you don't know is what life looks like beyond them, and well, that unknown can feel absolutely terrifying. Every healing journey eventually hits a crossroads. On one side, we have familiarity. It feels safe, predictable, and it allows the cycle just keep coasting. It asks very little of you today. But on the other side, we have possibility. It leads toward change, but it asks you to actively interrupt the cycle. It asks for courage. People often imagine this crossroads as a battle between an easy path and a hard path. But actually, scratch that. It's not. It is a choice between two different kinds of hard. It's the hard of staying the same versus the hard of changing. The hard of repeating the cycle versus the hard of breaking it. The very behaviors that protected us often become the obstacles we must overcome. This quote perfectly touches on what we call the healing fantasy. It's this secret, desperate hope we all have that peace will finally arrive without us actually confronting the pain. We want the relationships to get better and the anxiety to disappear without actually changing our own behavior. But unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. Healing asks us to practice completely different behaviors than the ones that kept us safe in the past. It's like a people pleaser has to actively learn to set boundaries. A perfectionist must learn self-compassion. A controller has to learn trust. And the hyper-independent survivor, they have to learn the super uncomfortable skill of receiving support. Taking action feels terrifying because it requires us to confront the very things we've spent years, maybe our whole lives, avoiding. We're talking about profound grief, anger, shame, disappointment, fear, loss. Healing literally asks us to turn around and walk directly toward these difficult-to-avoid experiences rather than running away from them. So yeah, no wonder it feels intimidating. There is a massive difference between reading a book about healing and actually doing the work. Now, what's really interesting is Section 3, tiredness as your catalyst. I want to completely reframe how true transformation actually begins. We often wait around for this sudden lightning bolt burst of bravery to strike us before we make a change. We think we have to feel invincible, but that is almost never how the process actually starts. Let's completely redefine courage. Forget the idea of Hollywood fearlessness. True courage is actually a quiet determination. It arises when you are simply too tired to keep carrying that same old suitcase year after year. People don't begin healing because they suddenly become brave. They begin healing because they become exhausted. They are tired of the anxiety, the loneliness, the broken relationships, the constant anger. Courage is a firm decision that simply says, I cannot keep living this way. It happens the exact moment that the pain of staying the same finally becomes greater than your fear of changing. Which brings us to Section 4, Freedom Through Honest Conversations. At some point, healing demands absolute, unwavering honesty. Facing avoided truths is the only essential key to unlocking true freedom. We have to be honest about what happened, what hurt, what was missing, and, this is a tough one, even how our own pain has affected others. The conversations we avoid are almost always the ones holding the keys to our healing. Sometimes these happen with family members, sometimes with a therapist or trusted friends, and very often, the most difficult ones happen quietly within ourselves. Now, people often pause here. And it's not because they lack courage, but because they intuitively know that honesty changes things permanently. Once a truth is acknowledged, you can no longer pretend you don't see it. You can't just put it back in the box. But let me assure you, that honest acknowledgement is exactly where your freedom begins. All right, let's get into the how-to. Section 5, 3 steps to action. Let's make this incredibly practical. I want to hand you the Empathetic Coaching Playbook right now to give you a concrete, immediate way forward for today, so you aren't just left with abstract theories. Let's walk through this specific 3-step process. Healing is ultimately an active choice, and not just one giant, overwhelming choice, but thousands of little micro-choices. Step 1, you must choose awareness over avoidance. Step 2, choose honesty over denial. Actually have the conversation, even if it's just the one with yourself. Step 3, choose action over intention. Do something different, even if it feels super clumsy at first. You just have to do this again and again and again. And I want to offer you a gentle reminder as you walk through these steps. You do not need to have everything figured out right now. You do not need to be fearless. You don't even need to see every single step ahead on the staircase. You only need to be willing to take the next one. That single choice repeated over time has the power to change your life, and perhaps even the generations that come after you. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. What would your life look like 5 years from now if absolutely nothing changed? Really let that sink in for a second. Let the stark contrast between the comforting familiarity of your old patterns and the incredible possibility of new growth just wash over you. If you choose comfort today, you know exactly where you'll be in 5 years. But if you choose action, if you decide you are finally too tired to carry that suitcase, what might become possible for you? Healing doesn't happen because we understand our wounds. It happens because we actively choose to respond differently to them. I really hope you make that choice today. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I'll see you next time.